third time a Proton rocket has been used to launch modules to the International Space Station. The very first element, the Zarya module, or Functional Cargo Block, FGB, was launched on November 20th. 1998 to begin the era of the International Space Station. And then on July 12, 2000, the Zvezda service module launched from this same complex that the current Proton is on, ready for launch in just a few minutes to send the Nauka multipurpose laboratory module on its way. The first stage of the Proton M uses 6 RD-275 engines, providing almost 2 million pounds of thrust. They will burn for about 2 minutes and 4 seconds before first stage separation occurs at an altitude of about 26 statute miles, with the Proton traveling 3,900 miles an hour. The Proton's 6 first stage engines that you see with strap-on boosters, those are actually fuel tanks, not solid rockets. They're fuel tanks. It's all hypergulls for the Proton M. They're all integrated into the first stage propulsion system. 4 second stage engines, 3 RD-210s and 1 RD-211, will ignite a second or two prior to first stage separation and will burn for about 3.5 minutes, providing 539,000 pounds of thrust. The second stage separation occurs at the 5-minute 31-second mark into the flight as the Proton reaches an altitude of 75 miles, traveling almost 10,000 miles an hour. The payload fairing that encapsulates the Nauka module will separate in a clamshell fashion 13 seconds later, just a few seconds after third stage ignition of a single RD-212 engine. That will burn for almost 4 minutes in the final stage of powered flight, creating an additional 138,000 pounds of thrust to place the multipurpose laboratory module into its preliminary orbit, with a final assist from 4 small Vernier engines that will burn for 12 additional seconds after third stage shutdown. Spacecraft separation from the third stage of the Proton is scheduled 9 minutes and 40 seconds into the flight. At that point, Nauka should be at an altitude of about 125 miles, beginning this 8-day journey, raising its altitude in a very incremental fashion to match that of the International Space Station for an automated docking 8 days from now. Today's operations, following launch and following the arrival of the multipurpose laboratory module into its preliminary orbit, will be under the control of Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center on the outskirts of Moscow. They are monitoring all of the systems of the MLM and all of the systems of the Proton rocket. The first 9 minutes and 40 seconds to be governed by technicians in a blockhouse in Байконур. This is a different launch site than is used for piloted Soyuz missions and unpiloted Progress missions. The Nauka multipurpose laboratory module and the Proton M rocket rolled out to the launch pad 39, on a rail car back on Saturday, following its integration and the stacking of the 3 stages of the Proton M rocket. It took almost 2 hours for this rollout to take place in the desert. You can see a video that was provided by Roscosmos and Teleport Luch of the rollout activities as the Proton M made its way to the launch pad, where it was hoisted vertically. A service tower was wrapped around the structure, where electrical and fuel lines were hooked up, and final checks were made over the past several days. About 3 hours ago, the 4 astronauts aboard the Crew Dragon Endeavour completed the first phase of today's galactic twin bill, with a relocation from one port on the Harmony module, the forward port of Harmony, to the zenith port of Harmony, as you can see in this replay, as the Crew Dragon Endeavour moved in for a smooth and uneventful link-up to the international docking adapter on the space-facing port of the Harmony module at 6:35 a.m. Central Time. Hooks were closed a few minutes later, and the 4 astronauts on board the Endeavour, Shane Kimbrough, Megan MacArthur, Aki Hoshide, the ISS commander, and Thomas Pesquet of the European Space Agency, opened hatches a couple of hours later and moved back inside the International Space Station. That port relocation earlier this morning now frees up the forward port of the Harmony module for the arrival of the Boeing Starliner spacecraft that is scheduled to make a test flight with a launch from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station on July 30th and an automated docking to that forward port of Harmony 24 hours later on July 31st. Countdown clocks continue to tick backward towards launch. Less than 20 minutes and 30 seconds from now. All of the preparations have gone very well. The fueling of the rocket was completed several hours ago. The weather down in Байконур is ideal, not a cloud in the sky. Temperatures 94 degrees Fahrenheit. At the time of launch, at 9:58 and 25 seconds a.m. Central Time, 7:58 and 25 seconds p.m. in Байконур, 30 minutes before sunset, the International Space Station will be traveling 262 miles above the Earth, flying over northeast China. Once Nauka begins its 8-day journey to the International Space Station, a series of other key events will be forthcoming. On Friday, the unpiloted ISS Progress 77 cargo craft, which is currently docked to the Pirs docking compartment on the Earth-facing port of the Russian segment of the International Space Station, will undock and extract the Pirs docking compartment, completing 20 years of service for Pirs to the International Space Station, where it served as both a docking port and an airlock for Russian spacewalks. The engines on the Progress will fire later that day for about 18 minutes or so in a deorbit maneuver that will send the Progress and the Pirs into a fiery reentry into the Earth's atmosphere, where the 2 spacecraft will burn up over the Pacific Ocean. The Pirs launched back in September of 2001, has been a venerable workhorse for the Russian side of the International Space Station, again serving as a docking port and an airlock for spacewalk activity. Once that undocking takes place, within a few hours after that, the Canadarm2 robotic arm will be positioned to do a very detailed survey with video cameras of the vacated docking port where Pirs has called home for the past 2 decades. That video will be analyzed by Russian flight controllers, and if they see anything untoward, such as debris or something of that nature, consideration could be given as early as this weekend with the approval of the International Space Station program for the 2 cosmonauts on board the station, Oleg Novitsky and Pyotr Dubrov, to conduct a contingency spacewalk next Tuesday, July 27th, to clean that docking port while the multipurpose laboratory module is still en route to the International Space Station. The odds of that happening are quite low. We expect that docking port to be clean, but we will be conducting a detailed survey using the Canadarm2 cameras to ensure that the MLM has a clean docking port for which to execute an automated docking on July 29th. Just 17 minutes away from the launch of the Nauka module. Again, it will take about 9 minutes and 40 seconds for the vehicle to spacecraft to separate from the upper stage or the 3rd stage of the Proton rocket. That will be followed just a few seconds later by the command to unfurl the Nauka's solar arrays and navigational antennas, and it will be on its way for a long phasing, an 8-day rendezvous deliberately designed to allow for the undocking of the Pirs docking compartment, this docking port inspection, and other systems checks of Nauka while it is en route to the International Space Station, its docking schedule for July 29th. Once Nauka reaches the International Space Station, the Russian plan calls for up to 11 spacewalks beginning in early September to begin the outfitting of this new large module. It's among the largest modules ever launched to the International Space Station, 43 feet long, with a mass of almost 23.5 tons. That will join the International Space Station, again replacing the Pirs docking compartment, whose service to the International Space Station is now complete. Inside 15 minutes until launch, the report from Байконур from the blockhouse is that the Proton M is now on launch mode, as it is called, basically internal power, ready to begin its journey to deliver the multipurpose laboratory module into its preliminary orbit. Now coming up on the T-minus 13-minute mark, about 3 minutes from now, ground controllers at Байконур will activate the Proton M's launch abort capability, should that become necessary, and a final pull of the launch conductor down in Байконур is expected at about the T-minus 5-minute mark. Again, the exact launch time, 9:58 and 25 seconds a.m. Central Time, 7:58 and 25 seconds p.m. in Байконур, which will be about 30 minutes before sunset on a cloudless evening. After Nioka reaches its preliminary orbit, there are two so-called DV burns, or delta velocity burns, of the MLM's engines that will be planned later today, and two more again tomorrow. Those will be the first four major maneuvers to begin raising the altitude of the new module as it begins its slow climb to reach and match the same orbit as the International Space Station for docking on July 29th. Unlike a Soyuz booster that you're familiar seeing on those launch pads at the Байконур Cosmodrome, there are no umbilical towers, simply a service structure that was moved away from the Proton M a few hours ago after the fueling and the final systems checks had been completed by launch engineers in Байконур. Inside 10 minutes now until launch. The report from the blockhouse in Байконур is that they are now confirming that the Proton M is on autonomous power, ready to begin its flight a little over 8.5 minutes from now. Everything is in order in Байконур. All the reports indicate a smooth countdown. The Proton M is ready to begin its mission to deliver the Nioka multipurpose laboratory module into its preliminary orbit. T-minus 7 minutes and counting. Everything in readiness. Once again, at the time of launch, the International Space Station and its 7-person crew will be flying 262 statute miles above the Earth over northeast China. The Proton will arc out to the northeast from its launch pad at the Байконур Cosmodrome in pursuit for an 8-day journey to reach the international outpost. Coming up on the 4.5-minute mark until launch. The countdown continues flawlessly so far. No issues being reported from Байконур. T-minus 4 minutes and counting. Three and a half minutes until launch. Again, this is the first time a Proton rocket will have launched a module to the International Space Station since the launch of the Zvezda service module 21 years ago. T-minus 3 minutes and counting. T-minus 2 minutes and counting. Flight recorders now activated. And we are now T-minus 1 minute and counting. T-minus 40 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds, standing by for the initiation of the launch sequence. T-minus 10 seconds. Engine start and liftoff. A module named Science takes flight to the International Space Station. Good stage 1 ignition. Roll, pitch, and yaw programmer in. Nominal pressure reported in the 6 first stage engines. 40 seconds into the flight. Good stabilization on the vehicle. Coming up on the 1 minute mark into the flight. All engines running normally. Now going through the period of maximum dynamic pressure on the Proton M. Good vehicle performance reported from the blockhouse in Байконур. One minute 30 seconds into the flight. One minute 45 seconds into the flight. About 20 seconds left for first stage performance. Second stage ignition. And first stage separation. Two minutes, 25 seconds into the flight. Good stabilization on the vehicle. 4 second stage engines up and running. They'll burn for about 3.5 minutes. Yaw, pitch, and roll program reported to have nominal parameters so far as we approach the 3 minute mark into the flight. The Proton tracking right down the line. The flight is proceeding normally, coming up on the 3.5 minute mark into the flight. 4 minutes into the flight, good chamber pressures reported for the 4 second stage engines. About 5 minutes and 40 seconds of powered flight remaining. The altitude and downrange distance matching pre-launch predictions. Four and a half minutes in, 5 minutes and 10 seconds of powered flight remaining. These 4 second stage engines providing more than 500,000 pounds of thrust. Good vehicle stabilization reported by the launch control team in Байконур. So far, so good. Five and a half minutes into the flight, just over 4 minutes of powered flight remaining. Third stage ignition and second stage separation confirmed. And payload fairing has been jettisoned. Just over 6 minutes into the flight, everything is reported to be proceeding in great fashion. The multi-purpose laboratory module now being boosted on the final stage of its powered flight through the single RD-212 engine, which will burn for another 3 minutes plus, creating an additional 138,000 pounds of thrust. Good pressure in the third stage engine, coming up on the 7-minute mark into the flight. 7 minutes in, 2 minutes 40 seconds of powered flight remaining. Seven and a half minutes into the flight, everything looking good. Just over 2 minutes of powered flight remaining. We've just passed the 8-minute mark into the flight, about another minute and a half to go. Once the third stage shuts down, there'll be another 12-second firing of vernier engines before spacecraft separation, and then the command to deploy the Nauka's solar arrays and navigational antennas. All structural parameters on the third stage in great shape. 8 minutes 40 seconds in, 1 minute of powered flight remaining. 9 minutes, 10 seconds into the flight. 30 seconds of powered flight remaining. Good yaw, good roll, good pitch. MLM right on the money so far. 9 minutes, 30 seconds in, standing by for third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation. We have third stage shutdown and separation. The multipurpose laboratory module has separated from the third stage. We are standing by for confirmation of deployment. And we now have confirmation of solar array and navigational antenna deployment. All external appendages have been deployed. Nauka en route to the International Space Station. Flight controllers there at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow, watching the initial activation of all of Nauka's systems, following a nominal ascent and a flawless launch on the Proton M from the Байконур Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. The flight controllers are receiving real-time telemetry from Nauka. The MLM has been placed in a perfect orbit by the Proton M, beginning an 8-day journey to reach an automated docking to the Earth-facing port of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. Once again, all of the external appendages, meaning the navigational antennas and the solar arrays, as well as the Nauka's docking target, all deployed now. And Nauka well on its way on the first leg of its journey to reach the International Space Station on July 29th. It was a flawless countdown and an on-time launch at 9:58 and 25 seconds a.m. Central Time, 7:58 and 25 seconds p.m. Байконур time. This is Mission Control Houston. You're looking at a view of the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow, where flight controllers are breathing a sigh of relief with the Nauka multipurpose laboratory module now in its preliminary orbit, beginning an 8-day journey to reach the International Space Station. There are a number of visiting vehicle comings and goings that we have an animation to show you. First off will be the undocking of the ISS Progress 77 and Pirs docking compartment on Friday, followed by the arrival of the new multipurpose laboratory module on July 29th. That sequence of events will also have associated with it the Canadarm2 robotic arm survey of the vacated docking port late Friday following the departure of the Pirs docking compartment, which will be deorbited through the engines of the ISS Progress 77 following its undocking on Friday morning. We'll talk more about the times of all of that activity in a minute. That Canadarm2 robotic camera survey will be viewed very carefully by the Russian flight controllers to ensure that the docking port being vacated by Pirs in preparation for the arrival of Nauka will be clean, free of debris, anything that would inhibit a smooth automated docking of the new module on July 29th. If they see something untoward, they will discuss this with the ISS program over the weekend and could elect to stage a contingency spacewalk by Oleg Novitsky and Pyotr Dubrov next Tuesday, July 27th, to do a manual cleaning of that docking port should it become necessary, although that is considered a very low probability. In the meantime, the Pirs docking compartment and the ISS Progress 77 cargo craft are set to undock from the International Space Station on Friday, now that Nauka is on its way. Our coverage on Friday will begin at 8:45 a.m. Eastern Time, 7:45 a.m. Central Time, for an undocking. Actually, the time now has been updated to 9:15 a.m. Eastern Time, 8:15 a.m. Central Time, but our coverage will begin on Friday morning at 8:45 a.m. Eastern, 7:45 a.m. Central Time. With the 77 Progress and Pirs docking compartment having left the International Space Station. That will set up the actual docking of Nаука to that same docking port on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the station, with docking scheduled on Thursday, July 29th, 8 days from now, at 8:25 a.m. Central Time, 9:25 a.m. Eastern Time, and you can see our coverage time will start about an hour before Nauka's scheduled automated docking, adding a new module to the International Space Station. So it's been a busy day for the International Space Station. First, the relocation of the Crew Dragon Endeavour from the forward port of the Harmony module to the zenith port of Harmony, clearing the forward port for the anticipated arrival late next week of the Boeing Starliner vehicle on its second test flight, scheduled for launch on July 30th from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, and a docking to the Harmony module on July 31st. And again, our coverage of the 77 Progress Piers docking compartment undocking from the International Space Station is coming up on Friday, July 23rd, 2 days from now, with our coverage beginning at 7:45 a.m. Central Time, 8:45 a.m. Eastern Time, for a undocking at 8:15 Central, 9:15 a.m. Eastern Time. So stay with us all the way for all of the activities, and an extraordinarily busy time for the International Space Station. For now, at long last, the Nаука multipurpose laboratory module safely in its preliminary orbit, en route for a docking to the International Space Station on July 29th. Thanks for joining us today. This is Mission Control Houston.